There she is.
Well, hi, how are you? Thanks for having me on again today. I always love Wednesdays like everybody else.
Well, you know, I could be blindfolded, not even know the date or the time, and just listen to the ding of my text message, and it's a general. It's got to be Wednesday.
Well, I have a lot to say. They're going to have to start taking a lot of notes because God has been talking a lot. He has a lot to say about what's going on right now and what we're seeing not only in this country, but also in the land of Israel. But he said that Israel and the United States of America were going to rise together. And also that President Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu were going to be hand in hand, bringing a healing to the lands of our country. So there's a lot that's going to happen. I know it doesn't look good for, times with what's going on with Israel, but God's the protector of Israel. And we continue to pray for the protection of Israel, and every Christian should. And what's going on in our country. God's saying he's just getting started. So get your popcorns out and get ready, buckle up, because things are going to start to get really interesting here.
And according to rabbis, 31 is the number of Juve Vave. Interesting.
That is very interesting. But there's no coincidence with God, that's for sure. So everything is very significant in the timing of God and what God is doing to reveal, what God is doing to restore, and what God is doing to also judge. So that's why I said to people, they have to start learning how to put on the armor. I did an entire huge teaching on it yesterday. The Lord had actually gave me great revelation when I was actually on live, because this is the time when we need to have our armor on, and we need to start being prepared for what's about to come. And again, it's good. It's not bad. It's good because it's part of our freedom.
Right. It is. And again, as we said last week, I believe we're into days, weeks, maybe not months anymore. I gotta be careful how I say this. I spoke to a couple people yesterday, and just part of it was what they said. Part of it was their body language, and something else. Something significant is going to happen at the DNC event. Something significant.
I have many prophecies on that. I actually heard another one this morning, but God has mentioned the DNC more than once. We started talking about that because he actually mentioned the RNC, and before the RNC started, it was like early that Monday morning. Remember, I told you I had said it to our mutual friend before he went there. The Lord had me send it to him because he was warning about a spiritual battle that was going on there and what the enemies were trying to do inside the RNC. And it looked like there's a lot of good things that happened, because there was. But it looked like there was a lot of unity. There's a lot of good things that happened, but behind the scenes, lurking behind the scenes, was the enemy trying to get in there. I'm actually going to give you a prophecy here that gave the events of how things were going to happen, and they actually have happened the way it's happened so far, especially even with President Trump, his vice president pick, and what happened with Biden and so on. So I'll give you that prophecy. But the DNC, the Lord he's been talking about this for a couple of weeks. I actually already have one pulled up. I will have the other ones pulled up for you. But God's been warning us about something is majorly going to happen there. And he said, in one of the words, he said it was unprecedented of what's going to take place at the DNC.
Yeah, after yesterday, putting the pieces together and what they said, what they didn't say, but the body language, something major is going to happen at the DNC. Then you have President Trump tweeting or truthing something out, I guess is what you call it, which got people scratching their head, saying that Biden may come back into the DNC and try to get his place back on the ticket. And like, what is that all about? And then you throw this bizarre VP pick for Kamala Harris, which came out of left field. It makes no sense. None.
Nope. And again, God has been saying, and he's doubling down, tripling down on her not being the replacement. And I'm like, Lord, but it really truly looks that way right now. And I'm like, they don't have much time left. But he said it again yesterday, and I'll give you that prophecy. I mean, but majority of yesterday's prophecy I'm going to give to you because it was that big, it was that detailed of the information that you're going to want to hear, and the generals that are listening, they're going to want to hear it too, of what's happening in our country and how detailed God it truly is. But I'll read the DNC one since we're talking about it now. But I had just found out about that. My team sent that to me about what Trump said. It's always really important to listen to what Trump is saying, because God has even said, pay attention to your rightful president's words. And he said it more than once. And so in this prophecy, now this is one that I'm not trying to say, anything, but people need to really listen to what God was saying. This is back in February, and he started talking about the DNC back then. Okay, so here's the first paragraph. For I, the Lord, at this day, am telling you, my children, all of a sudden he was 6 inches taller, which we've talked about before. So we didn't go the way they wanted it to go. It was like a little shaking in them.
Yep.
Then it says, much will take place before their convention, the DNC, much will take place in their party and the Washington establishment. They are at a point of no return, and they do not see me coming, or that my justice will prevail. And so that was one. Now look at all that stuff that has happened before their DNC. All what he said was going to happen before the DNC has happened. So he was warning us up to that point. Then he says in another one, this was a recent one, June 18th. The DNC convention will be unprecedented for them, and not in a good way. There'll be interruptions and people marching in the streets. Protesters will show that their great resistance has grown. Their party lines have been drawn, and where they once agreed, now there is a great divide. So I think that also goes in with what they're saying and what President Trump is saying. This is going to be definitely an unprecedented convention, and God has talked about how there is a civil war going on in the establishment. And I think we're going to start seeing more of that during the DNC.
Well, we still got a couple of weeks yet before the DNC, and each day is absolutely crazier. Like I don't know of anybody that could have predicted the pick that Kamala made. It just doesn't make any sense. You got that on the heels of this Jamie Raskin, who was openly talking about the 14th Amendment, that if President Trump is in office, they won't let him take over in January of 2025.
Wait, what?
Yeah, he out there. Many are calling it treasonous that he said this. It was on, it's everywhere. I think it first came out yesterday. He's publicly saying under the 14th Amendment, Congress will not allow President Trump to go into office, signaling what they wanted Mike Pence to do, but worse, just refusing to let him come in to office under the 14th Amendment. That's treason.
It is treason. Remember how God has mentioned that in so many different words? Apparently, what I found out this morning right before I got on here, that treason is the biggest word that's right now trending on.
Probably because.
But God mentioned it first. I know that. He's been mentioning it a lot recently.
You know, ironic treason. General. We had General McInerney and General Valley. I had General Flint. We had all three generals on yesterday, separately, but all three generals yesterday. But General McInerney has been talking about this being treason since the get-go, and he said something very interesting. I believe that interview comes out tomorrow or today or tomorrow. One's General Flynn's today or tomorrow or vice versa. Anyway, he said Obama is in frantic panic state, General McInerney said, and this is a time to be very aware or be very alert, because they are in panic state. What's going to happen next?
God said that they're going to be in a state of fear, and he's also cutting their lines of communication off. I can't wait to give you the prophetic words that he's talked about with the servers again, and more things that were on the servers, and how that's going to impact them as well. So there is a lot that's going to happen in this next couple months before this election. But again, the removal of Kamala and what happens with this DNC, because God said that's not the replacement. I think that's another reason why Obama's panicking, because Obama did not want her. He wanted somebody else. But in this prophetic word, it showed that he didn't have a choice, and she was like their temporary pick.
Wow.
They're not done with trying to get exactly who they want when they want it. And they will do anything. They don't care about election laws. And, well, what about this person on the ballot? They can also write somebody in. It doesn't have to be they can figure out ways. I'm telling you, they probably already have ballots being printed with this person that they really truly want on there.
So the communication, that's fascinating. When did you get this prophetic word about communications cut?
Several. I've actually got them in the last year or two. And he's talked about the communication lines being cut and confusing their line of communication.
Wow, that's interesting. I just heard that the last couple of days. They tapped into their communications and they're cooked.
Yeah, God said, remember, he said he's infiltrating the infiltrators. That's why he can cut into the lines of their communication and cut them off. He even said he was cutting off between the puppet master and the puppet. He was cutting the puppet strings. And so let me get into one of this one. This was on the 28th of July. This one is very interesting. I know you're going to find a lot of these very fascinating. So this was the 28th. I actually gave it out on the 5th because I was gone. And I was in Texas, so I didn't give everything out when I was there. This is the 28th of July, and it says, "My children, in the land of my eagle, your enemies truly think they can pull the wool over your eyes to replace their candidate, and everything will go smoothly. They truly believe that people in your nation will believe the abrupt change of a narrative. They truly believe they can wipe out the evidence of the truth while they lie through their teeth. They truly believe that pouring money into a new person will magically change the direction of this campaign, while also trying to prop up Kamala. Neither will work. Revenge is coming out of their camp. There is a civil war growing. The civil war is growing behind the scenes. Is about to is growing behind the scenes. Who really controls not only the Democratic Party, but the establishment." So that's what he's talking about. And he's mentioned this more than once. There is a civil war about probably more than one camp, or two camps, I mean. Yep. But they are trying to determine who really controls the DNC, who really controls the Democratic Party, but also the establishment. There is infighting. None of them want to lose control and lose power. So you have people who want Kamala, you have people who want Biden, and you may have people that want somebody else. And so there's fighting right now. Then he goes on to say, as they fight over who the real candidate should be, damning evidence will leak and be exposed because each side has plenty on it, one another. I told you what this was a time of an eruption of truth and proof. Things they have buried for a long time will start to pour out everywhere. They do not want the Biden. They do not want Kamala. And their narrative is not going the way they want because the people of this nation are not accepting her either. No amount of money or their manipulation or lying will prop up any of their puppets. It's all backfiring on them right in front of their faces. Do not forget the warnings I have given you about not letting your guard down. Your enemies still have infiltrators on the side of the red, ones buried so deep that no one will expect the ones who are about to be exposed as traitors to this nation and to this party. A political shakeup is about to happen in a way never seen in this country. More unprecedented events are coming because your enemies of this nation realize their establishment is crumbling and all they have fought for.
So just boom, it's all coming out just in 24 hours.
And also that he, I just saw this too, that he was got caught speeding like a 96 and a 55 or something like that. And they said he wasn't drunk, and, you know, all these different things. And about this exposure, this is allowed to happen. And just like the exposure all of a sudden on Kamala's husband out of nowhere, they could have done that when she was running for president a long time ago. They didn't have to, because she wasn't getting anything and the people hated her guts. And so they didn't have to use any of this. There was another prophecy that I'll give out today too that talked about how they're letting a lot of these exposures with Kamala because they don't want her. They want to get rid of her. They know that she's not polling well and may look a lot of things. He says the polls are lying. Yep. And their inner polls, even with the Democratic Party and the establishment, they don't want her. And so they feel like they're stuck with her for now until they can figure out what they can do. But they're just going to do the same thing they did. They're just going to start letting all these exposures happen. And just like they're doing with her VP pick, and they're going to get rid of both of them and put in who they want.
Yeah, they are lying in the polls. It's sick. I remember when I first heard the news of who she picked, my first thoughts were exactly what General McInerney thought when he first heard it. Boom. Amazing.
I'm glad he said it because it's true, because I have more proof about that, and that was part of the servers.
Yeah, the servers.
God mentioned that will be on the servers. And let me get that one out really quick.
Yeah, because that's interesting because General McInerney was the one that came out with Project Hammer before anybody else knew what Project Hammer was, and that was Brennan on the servers, those secret servers. That you've seen where those servers are at. That's coming out soon. There's a lawsuit right now.
I'm going to show you. There's a lot on. Okay, this prophecy is a long one. I gotta see exactly the pinpoint where this is at, and then I will show you the rest of it. So he's saying it. Those things are on the servers, and then he goes on to say, "My children, I have allowed certain things to take place, so you could see what was really going on behind closed doors in your so-called government and their agencies." So this is the three-letter agencies that control them. Ones in Washington truly believe they have everything covered, so these truths would never come out. But they weren't counting on me to expose them all. So before I read any more about the Secret Service and about the FBI and about the CIA, he used the word Watergate. I say this again for a shocking reason. Not only will you see the truth from back then, but I will show you this architect of the scandal and the blueprints are similar design to what they have used against my David. The architect is the same, and they can't pass the blame to someone else. They were using Watergate and that, whatever, to get rid of Nixon. Well, that was all a setup.
It was.
They were doing the same thing, the same type of thing that used out of the playbook, and they used it for Donald Trump, but Donald Trump didn't back off, and Donald Trump didn't walk away like Nixon did. And so he's saying that the architect is the same, and the scandal of the blueprints are similar design. Well, to me, the architect would be the establishment. I mean, it could be something very specific, and he could name something very specific, but the architect and the blueprints are similar design to what they've used against my David. So there's got to be a connection between what they did with Nixon and what they did with President Trump, because there's a connection between what they did to JFK and what they did to President Trump.
Right. And I believe that architect that he's referring to is a person.
And
when the truth comes out about Watergate, that's another thing we were completely fooled about. Completely fooled about. This was
He's mentioned Watergate in so many prophecies, but this one I thought was just, I never thought to put those things together like that. And when he said it, now I was like, huh. And he's mentioned the architect and blueprints again, which he's mentioned in so many other prophecies that he's given to me. And then how he mentions it with Watergate, I love when he gives me intel like this, because it's something that you wouldn't put together in that specific way. But so yeah, there's a lot that's going to come out about that. And he keeps mentioning Watergate. So I have a feeling when all this comes out, because Watergate's probably on those servers.
Well, part of the servers, I believe that the Lord is talking to you about the hidden text messages and radio recordings, and I don't know about radio recordings, but was the crowd strike that went down. 50% of the world went down. I was told that was part of that was a cleaning of the servers, trying to get rid of compromising information off those servers in Ukraine.
Wow. I was wondering if that was what people say, black hat, white hat type of thing. I don't know if it was a good guy or bad guy thing. I was wondering, because everything that God has been talking about, we've been seeing rumbles of it. We've been seeing a little, hints of it here and there with that crowd strike and with Microsoft and what just happened with the economy. And they consider it was a failure. So they wanted something. That's why they want to release at least 10 things, 10 years worth of stuff in 1 year, because they're going to stop at nothing. And I think this is also interesting too. Right underneath of this, when he talked about Watergate in the same prophecy. Now I had two prophecies from Sunday. This was the second one out of that day. But he mentions, I think, when you said earlier about Obama being petrified and being afraid,
right?
This is also something he should be afraid of. A fake birth certificate will come back to haunt the ones who made it. And And if they prove that he was a false and fake president, and that comes out, really, truly comes out, and there's proof of that, all hell will break loose because they realize that everything that he did in those 8 years is going to be wiped out.
Including Supreme Court. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And
yep.
why are they all of a sudden really nervous about the Supreme Court? You have any idea why they'd be nervous about the Supreme Court? Maybe there's something the Supreme Court hasn't ruled on yet that they're still sitting on. I don't know.
So,
they're petrified.
you know, I've had a lot of prophecies about the Supreme Court, and here's another one from the same prophecy. Your enemies want to reform your Supreme Court, and I will show you it will be my reform and my reset. I will show you who really belongs on that court and who doesn't. A shaking of the highest court is coming because I'm the judge that will remove the judges on this earth who don't belong, and that goes for anyone who was appointed. And you have all these other different branches and all these different things that are going on in the states and everything. It's a down ballot. People are just looking at the president, and it's not just the president. We need a total political reset. And he talks about this right underneath of this. And he says, my children, a great overhaul and a great political reset is coming. Only God can do that. It's going to take more than just an election to save this country. It's going to take God.
Well, you can't deny God's working because your prophetic words are all good, but this one blows me away more than any other because I had this conversation on Sunday with somebody. You couldn't have possibly known. You couldn't have possibly known.
Oh, I could have. No, and we have not talked.
No.
Since last Wednesday.
Yeah. Wow. That's why I asked, where did you get this prophetic word? Because I had this conversation on Sunday.
About 5:30, 6 o'clock, or no, because this was the second one. I probably heard this around 6 or 6:30, because I think I started hearing the first one around like 4:30 or 5. This one is so massive. Now, this is the second one on that day. And the first one, you're going to be overwhelmed with that one, too. But this is the beginning part of, if you want to add any more about the Supreme Court, you can before I go on. But this prophetic word was like, it will blow your mind. It is so powerful and so detailed on what he says. And he talks about Israel too.
Well, I would love to add more to it, but I can't. I have to keep that conversation quiet. But it highlights into what God told you. And exactly. Judges will be removed. Some have been appointed not by a rightful president, but also the big one is what they're sitting on if this comes out, which I've heard from 2 other sources too. This is a game changer, a complete game changer if they drop this.
Yeah, we were just praying for Alito because we heard that he was about to, maybe retire. And I said, we as a team were praying about it. I said, Lord, I don't know if he's the one on your side. If he's not on your side, I don't know if this is blackmail and they're trying to force him out because whatever this ruling is, because God said that they were going to rule on something massive that was going to change the country. It was going to shake it up. And they're just trying to get him out of there before then so they don't have the right votes. But we were praying about that as a team, that only the ones that remove that are going to be on the wrong side of God will be the ones that are removed.
Yeah, since then, there's a couple surprises. I'm not going to say the names, but a couple people, one on the left that I thought was bad that may actually be good, and one on the right that I thought was good may actually be bad. So we shall see.
Mm-hmm. I think we're going to see a lot of that. Again, there's more going on in the Republican Party that they're seeing the writing on the wall. And the enemies know that Trump is going to win. There's no way. I mean, they're going to try to get rid of Kamala. They're going to try something else before this election.
Yep.
But they have fail-safes in the Republican Party. They have people that are there that are designed to take him out, to take President Trump out still. So we can't put our guard down and stopping praying for President Trump and praying for the awakening in the Republican Party. So again, we're fighting a spiritual battle, and I'll go on that prophetic word that God talks about that. We have to start praying for our political leaders, because what's going to bring this country back is not politics and politicians.
That's right.
It's really going to be God. And President Trump needs to know that as well, that it's not politics and politicians. And I know he's not a politician, but you know what I mean? He's still running for president, still running for a political office. But it really is God and God alone that's going to get the credit for all of this. It's not going to be one person.
That's right. Speaking of that, if you're part of President Trump's close circle and you're watching this, reach out to General McInerney and General Valley. They have something that can help you tremendously. I don't know why they're not listening to these Patriot generals. I don't think it's getting through the right channel, but we'll try to fix that. Mm-hmm. I'm told that President Trump still has a couple gatekeepers around him that are not good.
Yep. That's what we're praying about, because they're stopping people politically and they're stopping people spiritually. And that is one thing that we're praying for him, because the Lord keeps warning us to keep praying for him, but also warning President Trump, because I've had several different words, and I told our mutual friend, I said, I can't tell you how many words of warnings that I've gotten, and I don't want to overwhelm you with all these prophetic words, but there's so many words about people that are right next to him, and I don't know who they are. I'm not going to try to guess on who all they are. But things are just not where we can just say, okay, everything is fine around him, because it's not, because there needs to be a spiritual reform, I guess you want to say, around him and around his camp, because it's spiritual is what's going to bring them over the victory lane or victory line. And it's not just this election, because he needs people spiritually around him even after this election, because there's still imposters, there's still infiltrators that even though he wins the election, it's not over. They will still try to do things against him. And that's why they need God. So I know that, he can blow Kamala out of the water if they still want to use her, which I don't think they will, from what the Lord is saying. But this is a spiritual battle, and they need God, and they need what God is saying to them, and they need revelations from God, because they have certain insight. They're getting certain intel, which is really, really good. But the best intel in the world is the intel from God that the enemies cannot disrupt. And he can have so many different moves and things that he can do in advance before the enemies try to do anything, and it won't work. So he needs God's intel to guide him through this presidency, not just through this election.
Well, yeah, just to even double down on that, God's intel from God, not from somebody that looks like or says they're from God. The prophetic word you had about a certain person that we've talked about, not talked about name, but has created division and bad things. Somebody we both know had a prophetic word confirming that what your word was right, and another warning to President Trump not to trust a certain person from God that is doing it for their own purpose, not God's glory.
There's a lot of them actually out there that are like that, and it's really sad right now, because you got to think about this for a minute. They can't trust really anybody, and I'm sure they probably have more guards up, because after this attendance.
Yep.
You got to think, you can't even trust the body of Christ at a certain point. Now, to me, if you look at a certain person and the fruits of a certain person, you can tell what they're really about and what they're not, because some people make it very obvious that they're not there for the right reason. Just watching them, you can tell that they're not out there for the right reason. And so that's why he also needs people that with spiritual discernment around him, that are going to know who's right spiritually, that are going to know who's right politically, that are going to know who's right in every aspect, because God will lead them and guide them, just like what he was doing with Moses. It's like what he was doing with all these different people in the body of Christ. But again, President Trump needs to have that revelation about David. But again, not anybody can just give that prophetic word and that revelation about David. Because God calls him as David, yes, but he has to have the revelation that God needs him to have about why God calls him to David and what steps he has to take to be David, fully, spiritually to be David. So again, he needs the right people spiritually around him. And that's what we've never put our guard down and to keep praying for that. We keep praying for that. We keep standing on that, because we are seeing, and I'm hearing from a certain person what was going on. I just actually had one of our mutual friends, Bernadette Smith, she's from, Reawaken, which yep. And she was even saying she was at the RNC and saw things spiritually that she couldn't all say about, but it was not in the right direction at all.
Yeah, that's 3 or 4 people have told me that. Who else told me that? I gotta be careful how I say it. Our mutual friend was very concerned about it because they were trying to get President Trump to downplay. I think the exact words they were trying to get him to say is "thank your lucky stars" instead of giving glory to God. That it was luck that it happened, not God. And somebody else that was there. A certain going to be senator in Arizona came on a couple weeks ago and kind of didn't say it, but it was deeper. It was missing. There was missing the spiritual part of it.
So that's why I had to tell our mutual friend that before he went. I didn't even know he was actually going to go there.
Yep.
But once he told me he was going there, I said, "You need to hear this because this is what I got the day before." And it was the day before he was going, but it was the morning of the convention and when it was starting. But he's also warned about wolves in the Republican Party for a very long time. And because there's still the establishment that's very, very, very deep inside the Republican Party as well. And so just in case it does look like it's all on the surface, and I actually had another word that we've been praying about, Laura, because they were trying to get to her to get to President Trump and using her and her integrity. So that one I'm praying into. I have not given that to our mutual friend yet because, these are hard to give out. So I'm praying the exact right time that I'm supposed to give this one out. It was a very long, or not long, but it was a very powerful word, very detailed word about what they're trying to do against Laura.
Well, he took that word that you gave him serious because he called me when he was there, and he was just not like I would normally hear him, and it was just boom, boom, boom. These are concerns, and it should have been a time of great jubilee because he just came off the. And no, it was some flags.
Yeah, because the enemy wanted you to put our guard down because, well, God just saved our nation in a day. He just saved President Trump at that very moment. And so we were all excited. But that's when the enemy really super swoops in under the radar to try to do more damage. And that's the reason why we have to be on guard and warring in this and praying even more for our country and for President Trump and who's around him, because I still see in what's going on that they're trying to deceive him spiritually and politically.
So we have to be protective in our spiritual highs, as Jesus went to the mountain and prayed to the Father during spiritual highs, and spiritual lows, he went to the Father to pray. When the highs and lows, we really have to take it, because you're right, that's when Satan attacks, at our lowest or our high point, where we take our guard down, and we can never take our guard down. Like you said, put on the full armor of God for such a time as this. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Wednesdays. And we are back Wednesdays with Julie Green. All right, Julie, we have more of your prophetic word. I'm still, as I was telling you in the break, I'm still blown away by the one on Sunday. Wow. It's almost like you were on the call.
Well, that's God, because he was on the call.
Yep, he is. God knows. And I think that's why it's so awesome we have confirmations like that. Because our team does the same thing. We have confirmations between our team members, and it's so exciting when you see that, because it's like, when did you get that? How did you get that? It's like, I love what God does. He's so fun to be with, and how he confirms it. Because when you think that, is this really what I'm hearing? And he always confirms that it is him that you're hearing it from. So yeah, just before you get into the rest of that prophetic word, just going back to that, and I'm not obviously going to say it. I know the person behind it personally. Matter of fact, they were here with us when you were here for the event. You probably didn't see him.
Okay.
But this person is intimately involved. No, I don't think you did. In the Supreme Court thing. If this comes true, this is like mind blowing. It is a trump card, literally. So she'll see it. And that's the third person that told me that it's legit. Hang on.
And this is the thing. Remember what God said about President Trump, that he was the driving force behind that stone. So it's God's power. And no matter what, and then he keeps talking about taking out the giants. So I'm excited about giving you these prophetic words, because there's so much to unpack in these prophetic words that I don't even know which one to start on, because there's one that the first one from August 4th is called "A Civil War is Growing in Washington." And then this one is "A Short Silence is Coming." So he's warning us about a silence and what's going to happen with the internet and technology, and the reason why the internet and technology will be disrupted. So this is the first paragraph. "My children, your enemies are at your shoreline. They're at the door to begin their war. So they have so desired against Israel and my United States. Your establishment thought they were controlling what your enemies in foreign nations and what they were allowed to do and what they were not. But betrayal is about to strike the heart of the ones who think they control the world. Your enemies in foreign nations are about to strike where the establishment never thought they would. They're allowing proof to come out. They're allowing to pour out so they can do what they want against this nation. China thinks they have it in the bag, all the proof they need and the weakness in this nation to pull off what they so desire, to shut down, to override this leadership. Their agreements they had with your establishment are now broken, and there is a no holds bar in their plans with your government or United States. Your government let the doors wide open to foreign nations to come in to your country and into your government. They gave them intel, but it will not go as the way they want it to go. Foreign nations have turned against the establishment, and the establishment has turned against foreign nations. Too many people want the power when so many won't let go. Your enemies, children of Almighty God, and that's what God is telling us to do right now in the middle of this spiritual battle. He's saying, look, let them fight amongst themselves. They're fighting with the establishment. There's a civil war in the establishment. You have something going on with the foreign countries in the establishment. You have all these different parts that are being played right now, and they're all fighting against themselves because they want more power. And they think that, okay, this person's going to do it, this person's going to do it. But they all want the same thing. They want to take over this country, and they want to take over the finances of this country, and who is going to be the winner in the end. So it's almost like a tug of war, and they're going to start going against each other. And so that's why God says, because they're turning on one another. We're going to start hearing things about Afghanistan. We'll start hearing things about Iran. We're going to start hearing things about the Ukraine. We're going to start hearing things about what happened in Israel. We're going to start hearing things from other different countries that are going to start turning on the establishment because they're not getting what they want when they want.
Oh, boy. And that is happening. There was Ukraine came out, I think, yesterday, talking about how Schumer and McConnell made millions off Ukraine. Millions. Insane amount of money.
Wait, what?
Yeah. Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer. Millions of dollars off the Ukraine. That's still ongoing. There's somebody digging into this Waltz guy about his ties to China. That's not good. So you're right. And you have what they call the squad. Omar and AOC and all them. I think 3 or 4 of them have lost their primary. So there is in battles going on within the Democratic Party like never before. Like never.
Yeah, there was one. My team just gave this to me. It's actually on the Gateway Pundit too. That Cori Bush goes on unhinged rant filled with threats after losing her Democratic primary and says all they did was radicalize me. Now they need to be afraid.
Exactly. It was a threat. It was an absolute threat. She was another one of the squad members that lost primary. I think the next one is in Omar in Minnesota. And that if you're in Minnesota, in that area, I'm told that's an open primary. His dementia, that she knew about it and didn't say anything. So it's a recipe for disaster.
So I have so many prophecies on the squad. God gave so many different prophecies on them. So I will I'll have to go through all of them and see what it says, but they are treated as traitors, one of them says. So he said, watch this. Let's see here. The scandals, the squad in the House of Representatives will follow the scandals. Watch how easy it will be to continue to succeed or to stay in those positions that belong to my children. So it looks like even in this one was from February 16th of 2023. let me see what this full one says, because that's interesting that he talks about. Here's one from about AOC. AOC, as you call her, was paid to take that position in a way you didn't know. Scandals will surround her and who she is actually working for. For judgment is coming for all those who took these positions and that didn't belong to them. They will not continue to succeed or stay in those positions that belong to my children. Many in your so-called the squad in the House of Representatives were also full of scandals. Watch how easy it was for them to lie. Watch how I'm cleansing the House and all that. That doesn't belong to. That doesn't belong there. So he did talk about that. Was one.
Well, that's being fulfilled right before our very eyes. It said that they wouldn't make it to the 2024. They got knocked out in their primary. Talib, who is the squad member for Dearborn, Michigan, where all the Muslims are, they have their own Sharia law there. There is a report going out of Michigan right now. Muslims in the Dearborn area. That just broke yesterday, I believe.
Man, I just had a prophecy about Dearborn. And there was one about Talib, so I'd have to go back and see which one. If anyone, I know Talib, there was one about her. Let me go back and find out. I'm not spelling, I don't think, her name right. Let me see, because I know he's talked about her before too, because she was part of the squad. What is her? Why am I not spelling her name right?
Is it Talib?
I thought so, but it's not coming up that way. So I don't know. I'll look that up later, because I know there was some about her. But yeah, I mean, the one about the one I gave you about the squad is, it's actually coming to pass, but he gave several. So that's why I said even one of these things, they're just like, it's such a big, massive thing, because you can go look at the squad ones, but there's so many other different pieces to all these different puzzles, and they connect to other different prophecies. It's a huge thing. It's awesome to see what God is doing, and how there is no way I could have known any of these things unless God told me.
No way. No, there's no way. Because you couldn't have known what my conversation was on Sunday. I did have another conversation with another general. I think it was last weekend, not this weekend, but we were talking about how all these things are connected. I said, they're all connected. And he said, they are. Every single piece that we're talking about has a connection. Everything is connected together.
It is. There's another prophecy that talked about the connections too, the ties together, that I'll give that to you. So I'm going to read a little bit more about this one, because this is interesting. I think I already gave this part out. They wanted a war to stop this nation from rising and to silence you, the people. They were so desperate to stop you and to stop my David that they will allow anything to take place to stop him. Without thinking and really looking and judging the situation, they acted and made mistake after mistake. And these things are about to blow up in ways your enemies never imagined. So there is a lot to start coming out about, and it's all going back to judgment. It's all going back to ties of foreign nations. It's all going back to the establishment and the elites and what they tried to do to our country. He said it will blow up in ways never imagined. And the more the enemies are desperate, the more they're going to do things against us. And that's why we have to be on our guard.
So that prophetic word that you just said, General McInerney, I think it plays today or tomorrow, General McInerney and General Valley. But those were his exact words. He said July 11th, when the sentencing that they thought was to have President Trump failed, they did it so fast that their fingerprints are everywhere. He used the word fingerprints, and they made mistake after mistake, and they're panicking, and the truth will come out. Those are his exact words.
Wow. And of course, I wouldn't have known what McInerney said, General McInerney said, because I haven't actually talked to him personally myself.
Yep.
And I'm not part of those conversations. So that's just, again, more confirmations for people to realize that this is God's intel. And people say, well, Julie, your prophetic words. No. These are God's words. And only God could know these things. God knows all the pieces to this puzzle, and he's only given us certain ones out because, the enemies listen, and he's not going to reveal everything that he knows for them to stop it. So that's just an amazing confirmation, and I'm happy to hear about that. So God bless General McInerney.
Yeah, he went on to say that they were sloppy, and again, there was many mistakes. Their fingerprints are everywhere, and literally their fingerprints is everywhere. I'm told their fingerprints are there, and even the shells, that somebody took the shells and put them all in one spot, which they know it didn't come from one. So this whole thing is coming apart very quickly, and he has some choice words to say about Christopher Wray and that as well. So amazing times.
Christopher Wray is not going to stay where he thinks he's going to stay. So this is something else that goes along with what General McInerney said. Again, this is the second prophetic word on Sunday. He says, my children, I have allowed certain things to take place, and you could see what was really been going on behind closed doors in your so-called government and their agencies that control them. Ones in Washington truly believe they have everything covered, so these truths would never come out. But they weren't counting on me to expose them all. While you, my children, watch them fall, the Secret Service cannot sweep this under the rug, and the establishment will turn on them to cover themselves. This is something that they will not be able to move past from like before. Changing of narratives, and people will accept and let it go. Not this time. Watch when these servers are released, the destruction of what has been controlling your capital. So he's talking about how the Secret Service was working with the establishment. You know, they were. They were working with the DOJ. They were working with the FBI. They were working with the CIA. They were working with all of this establishment. And he's saying they're not going to be able to sweep this under the rug. And so what they're going to do is the establishment's going to let the Secret Service fall for this, which they already started to with Kimberly Cheadle and letting her go. And then one of my team members even said there was a massive thing that just came out. It was yesterday, the day before that. I haven't actually seen it, where there was proof of the DNA of what that cocaine belonged to in the White House. Now, I also talked about that cocaine and about it being revealed. I don't have that prophetic word up and the drugs in the White House and how he was going to reveal it. So he's saying that the Secret Service cannot sweep this under the rug, and the establishment will turn on them to cover themselves. They turned on Kimberly Cheadle, but they're not done because they're trying to hide the FBI being a part of it, the CIA being a part of it, Biden being a part of it, or AKA Biden or Obama being a part of it. So they're going to let certain people go from the Secret Service to cover up themselves because they always have fall guys in place. They had that, crook in place. But it just like with JFK, with Oswald, which I had another prophetic word about Oswald that I'll give out to you. That's very interesting. It's not the first time he's talked about him, but they're going to start letting people fall for the Secret Service, and the Secret Service is going to start fighting back and giving out more truth about what happened that day.
It's happening. Whistleblowers have come forward. We talked about that with the generals yesterday. Off that, they know who it is. She gave a stand-down order, and she was behind the scrubbing of the January 6th on the Secret Service of their phones, too. It's all coming out. The more and more whistleblowers of the Secret Service are becoming more bold to come out and tell the truth.
Because they don't want to be their fall people. They need to have boldness. And so everybody who's watching, they really need to start praying for the people who are in the Secret Service, who are really, truly good men and women. Because in every single one of these, the FBI, the CIA, and in our government, they're truly godly men and women. Or even if they're not godly, they're still good people. And they're just caught in this establishment. But we need to pray for the whistleblowers to have more boldness and for their security. And pray for all these people that truly want to save our country, and they don't want to keep being a part of the puppet masters from the establishment.
Well, before you get to your next prophetic word, we did get an update from a general on your Watergate, so it sounds like that's spot on.
Isn't God awesome? Tell whoever that was, God bless him, because God's so cool. He's just so cool.
I think that's what he said, too.
And that's why when people say,
give God the glory. Let me see. I think he said that.
Yes.
The Lord's
Praise
comment
God.
about
I
Watergate
always
is interesting.
do it. Say that again?
He said the Lord's comment about Watergate is interesting, and he provided some information about it.
Yep, well, he's got a lot about Watergate because he's not done with that either. There's a lot of things that they swept under the rug back in the day are going to be unearthed or, are going to be unburied. They're going to start digging them out.
Yep.
And there's a lot of things that have been keeping people in these powerful positions, and they're going to lose them by that. But remember the skeletons God was talking about? Skeletons in the closets of many people. That's going to be bringing them down. So I think that was interesting that he mentions that. I think it was a couple weeks ago when we talked about it. I have a feeling this all has to do with this server and all the things I've been trying to cover up for a long time, because they've been using these secret lines of communication for a very, very long time. And God said he's cutting the lines of communication off and confusing them, just like the Tower of Babel.
Yep.
He mentions that specifically. It's like the Tower of Babel, because that was the only way truly they communicated, whether it be their phones, these servers, whatever. And so God's cutting it off in order for them to not be able to plan out things the way they want it to be planned out. So very interesting what God's doing. God is in control. God's bigger than this establishment. And that's why I tell people all the time, God is bigger than the establishment.
You can feel that, tangibly feel the presence of God right now in complete control. I can't tell you if I've ever felt like this since this whole thing, that there is no doubt he is completely in control of everything.
Yeah,
That's a good feeling.
And he's showing it by all of these prophecies. I'm so blessed to have as many as I've had, as detailed as he's given them to me, without me asking for any of it. It's a blessing to see what he's done and talked about for so many years. I remember when I first started talking about the Biden and why God called him the Biden, and how everybody was just like, coming after me for that. Oh, this person. I was even written articles about this because he's 6 inches taller. I mean, we can see the different masks are, and the ears are different, the eyes are different colors, and the nose are different, the chins are different. But it took him being 6 inches taller to realize this is not the same person.
That was the trigger moment. That really was the trigger moment that got people that you wouldn't think would dig into this. And now Joe Rogan, there's some others I can't think of off the top of my head, but people that you wouldn't think would go there are like, wait a minute, you don't grow 6 inches after this, and then start looking in deeper in masks and all this stuff. And I told you there was a video, I believe it's legit because I've seen it twice, of Biden, what must have been one of the actors, getting in an Uber with no Secret Service. He got caught off guard. It was late at night somewhere. I don't know where it was. And he was kind of taken off guard by this person with a phone and didn't know what to do. And then the video cut off. So I don't know if that's legit.
I'll tell you, the persecution I got from that back, because I started hearing about that 3 years ago. And then he went into more detail about this person who they replaced him with, and they had to replace him with so fast because it didn't happen the way they wanted it to go. That's why they're like, Obama's petrified, because they had a plan probably to let him go maybe during the DNC, or let him win the election and then just do the 25th Amendment. And it didn't happen the way they wanted. So that's why things are not going the way, and they're just trying to just shove things in to try to save themselves, and they're not doing a very good job. And
two things they thought they had him locked down, game over. One was July 11th. They thought they were going to put President Trump in prison, and he was done. Once he escaped that, then they thought for sure they had him. They did not. God's hand stood in.
They didn't take in consideration the God of the impossible.
And that's exactly what General Flynn said yesterday. We had General Flynn. I think he's on Thursday or today, one of the two. Both three generals will be on the next 2 days. Anyway, he said it was the hand of God. There's no ifs. If you don't believe in God, you should just go back to that. It was God's hand that saved President Trump.
I love General Flynn. I'm so happy that he's giving God the glory for it, because it truly is the hand of God that did what he did. I mean, there was prophetic words about that exact thing and how it happened. And I thought it was interesting how.
So when that event happened, my phone started just ringing off the hook. A certain general reached out to me, and he thought that was the plan. He thought it was part of this thing that we heard about. And then I heard from other generals and other people said, no, this was the real deal. So crazy time. There are going to be more. They may be real. They may not be real. Who knows? Trust God.
Yep. Trust. That's the only thing we can put our trust in right now.
Yep.
You know, we can't put our trust in man. We can't put our trust in people. We have to put our trust in God, because things he said are not how they appear to be. So they can appear one way when they're actually another. And so people can look like they're good and they're actually bad. When people are bad, actually they're good. So we can't go by what things look like. That's why he's very specific in his word to walk by faith and not by sight. And that's the time we're living in right now, is to walk by faith and not by sight. But you will see them all fall like dominoes, one after another. Their fall guys won't work this time. They're all connected, and I will reveal it all. So remember how he talked about the connections that you just talked about? That is when he was talking about it in this prophecy, right with the Biden and the dominoes falling. And then he says, the road is about to get bumpy and things will begin to take place you have not seen before. Remember who I am, your avenger and your deliverer. I am moving so you can win. I'm moving in so you can win. My children, your enemies' time has expired, and you will know that for a fact. And he said, a short silence is coming to silence your enemies, so get ready with me, and you will see a mighty victory. So that is that one. So he's going to start revealing a lot of it.
Short silence. That ties into what we've been talking about for a while. Some sort of blackout for a short period of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then, and this is the one from August 4th. This is the first one, and it's called A Civil War is Growing in Washington. And he says, you are in the time of warning. Now, he's warned us about this time, the shaking, the violent shaking, the things that are going to explode, things that are unprecedented, unconventional, unusual, all these different things about the enemy's desperation, those kind of things. He says, you are in a time of warning. Your enemy's strategies will not work like they used to. They will try their blame game, lies, and much deception. The masks are turning away from them, and they will continue to turn away. Their polls, again, I say, are so deceptive. Their own party is not believing the lies either. Many more people will speak out against the left, and their puppet swap. It's not going how they thought it would go. Their inner polls are not changing how they wanted them to change. They are becoming much worse. So the change is that their people in the establishment are angry because they're not going along with this puppet swap. And so you're seeing this infighting. Again, a civil war is growing. And he says the establishment is crumbling. Their power is slipping away from them. More people will begin to speak out. More whistleblowers are coming to show how the hatred for Kamala really is by her own party. They will prove the polls are a lie and how fake their approval of her really is, how they had no choice but to go with her to change the course and to get rid of the attention off of Biden. This is very interesting because the one they were using could not be used anymore. They tried to switch out puppets once again, but this happened so fast, they knew this one wouldn't last. So Kamala, it is for this time, but the next phase is about to begin. I told you she wasn't the replacement. They will start to expose her secrets, and just watch more unprecedented things will pick up pace and to start to expose her even more. So we talk about how this replacement of the Biden wasn't going to work this time. So that's the reason why they had to go with Kamala.
So that's confirmation of two independent sources weeks ago that Laura Loomer was one. Then they tried to debunk it. She stood by her story, and it seems to be true. And then they had the police in Las Vegas that were going to take him to escort him to the hospital, and they decided to go to the Mayo Clinic instead. Both those are right in that period of time. So that explains it.
Yep. And they said, but they tried to switch out the puppet once again. So remember, he had one, the one they tried to debunk the first time where they said he's had something wrong on Air Force One. Right. And then it happened again in Vegas because it happened twice because it happened right after he basically mocked God. And then again, it happened in Vegas. Then there was two different episodes. Well, he said specifically, they tried to switch out puppets once again So they switched out puppets before. I don't even know which one they're on. If they're on number 3, if they're on number 4, if they're on number 5. I truly don't know. But he says they tried to switch out the puppets once again, but this happened so fast, they knew this one wouldn't last. So this last one, the 6-inch taller guy, they know it's not going to last because too many people are seeing that this person is not the same person.
Nope.
So they said, so Kamala, it is for the time, but the next phase is about to begin. And I told you she wasn't the replacement. So something's going to happen. I don't know exactly what it is, but again, I wouldn't be surprised if something did take place during the convention. And when President Trump said that like just floored me because I was just like, he doesn't say things to say things. He says things because he knows things.
Exactly. And that ties into what I was told yesterday and reading the body language of a certain general. Didn't have to say it, but I could tell on his mind, and something big is up at the DNC. There's something's up. Big.
Well, God said it would be. He said it'd be unprecedented.
Wow.
He's talked about the DNC since February. So
the DNC, that there is I don't know it off the top of my head, but a couple of people have brought this to my attention. Kim Clement had a prophecy about supposedly this DNC convention that's coming up in Chicago at the same hotel that it's going to be held at. I can't remember the hotel off the top of my head, but that'd be fascinating. This was some kind of big deal.
He did?
Yeah, prophesized back in 2015 or something like that.
Wow.
I'll have to check that, Kim.
I did not. Well, again, I couldn't watch him, so I didn't know what he said. So that's very interesting.
Yep.
Oh, I just love the fact of all the things that he said way before. I mean, this is talking 10, years plus. And, even with President Trump, I think he started prophesying about him in like early 2000s, somewhere people said. But now all of a sudden, all these things are coming to pass. I really wish he would have been able to be alive to see these things come to pass, because the prophets weren't very sought after during his time. So I really wish he would have gotten. Did
I tell you that he was part of the team that you met here in our summit? He was part of the team that had a kind of, I don't know if it's official, unofficial, prophetic team that would hear things and get it to the president. You didn't meet the guy that ran it. He'll be at the next one. But Kim Clement was part of that first group. And there's somebody that's still alive that's part of the first group that you'll meet that I can't say right now because I don't want to let the cat out of the bag. But it's fascinating. So they want to reestablish that, but have real direct connection to President Trump, that they're literally hearing directly from the prophetic voices. Because I don't think they heard from Kim Clement and these other people. There was a committee together, but I don't think that actually got up to the sitting president.
No, it probably didn't. No, you might have said that, but I don't remember. Because obviously there's a lot of things that have happened since that time we had the summit. But you think I'm not surprised, because God has always had his people together.
Yep.
And working together. And so I think that's amazing. And I can't wait to meet him in heaven, obviously. And just some thing about all the things he's saying. Again, I just go back to that. All the things he's saying now, and people are now listening when they weren't listening 10 to 15 years ago.
Right. Yep.
It's amazing what God is doing.
And that's another sign of prophecy. You get a prophetic word, doesn't mean it's going to happen in 10 minutes. It took Kim Clement 15, 20 years in some cases. Some of them still haven't been fulfilled, like the DNC one in Chicago. That could be in the next couple of weeks.
I just got a text message from my husband that said a prophecy about a terrorist attack in the DNC at the Hyatt Regency.
Yep, that's it.
That's what prophecy was about.
Yep, apparently. That's the prophecy. Yep.
Yeah, I don't know it because I've never heard of it. So
I haven't heard it either, but it's been brought to my attention a couple times because it happens to be the same hotel that the DNC. I don't think it's ever happened before, so they know it must be this one that's in a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen, but God said unprecedented. So, and just pray, because if anything happens to that convention in any way, I don't care what it is, you don't think they're going to try to put the blame game on the wrong person when it's really themselves, and they can blame somebody else for it and make it look bad. And what is really taking place when you see their faces, when their puppets will malfunction in ways they cannot hide, and this is not just one puppet, the puppet masters are losing control of many. There's an anger that has grown in the Uniparty in D.C. A panic has grown because they don't believe they can win, and to keep what they have now, which is the nation's full control, they have used big tech to silence you, and big tech is about to be silenced by me. They are reaping what they have sown. Again, he talks about the days of Haman. And he says, my children, when big tech is silenced, this is not the time to grow in fear. This is not the time to grow. This is the time to grow in your faith and trust in me, because I am setting you free from your enemies, saith the Lord of hosts. So when we start seeing these things against our technology, and they're not going to be working and functioning properly, God is saying he's silencing the big tech. He's silencing this because they were going to just start doing more things against us. And this is part of the days of Haman, reaping their rewards.
And that happened yesterday, a landmark judge ruling on Google, saying it was a monopoly and violated antitrust laws. X and Rumble are teaming together to sue big tech as well, with sponsors. So just in the last 2 days, there's been 2 huge court rulings on that prophetic word.
Well, and there are many different prophetic words on Google. I'd have to get them up, Google and YouTube. A guy was just taken down for the 6th time off of YouTube, and all it was just teachings. There was no prophecy. There was no nothing. It was just teachings, and they took me down, and they didn't give me a warning or anything. They just took it down. So God is basically talking about, they've silenced my people, and now I'm going to silence them. And part of that is part of that blackout and shaking. So people not to be afraid about it. He's just stopping their influence over God's people.
So what do we do when the lights go off? I'm looking forward to this event. We dance, we get in the,
I want to celebrate.
Yeah.
And so we should not fear at all what's going on in this time. We should be starting to celebrate. Get out your cake, get out your popcorn, because this movie that we've been watching is about to come to an end. And it's going to be great to see that's for sure.
And as I said earlier, I feel the presence of God so strong right now that his hand is so over. I mean, I did before, but not like this. It is like, my son, I got this. Do not worry.
That's right.
Let me show you who I am, the great I am that I am. So light wins.